Hi friends, this is your pal Scott Garibay, and today we are going to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and we are going to talk about a Scygaxian. What the heck does that mean, Scott? Those are two brand new terms that I am hoping to introduce into the American English lexicon. And so let's get into this. Let's explain this. All right, so I talk about Dungeons and Dragons a lot. Actually, I talk about Dungeons and Dragons, frankly, more than anybody on the planet. I literally think I have a higher volume of Dungeons and Dragons discussion than anybody on the planet. I got the receipts. I got literally 8,000 videos on Dungeons and Dragons. I don't think any single person on the planet has that, right? So I'm the king on D&D volume discussion, right? Okay. So I'm having this discussion, and someone comes in and they were debating me on a D&D subject, and they said, "Hey, I control player characters. I'm the dungeon master. I control all the NPCs, and I control all the PCs whenever I want to. I won't do it all the time, but I can override a player's decision whenever I want for their player character." And I'm like, no, that's not at all how Dungeons and Dragons works. You have fundamentally misunderstood everything Gary Gygax ever wrote on Dungeons and Dragons, and you have misunderstood literally every edition of the DMG, PHB, and MM that's ever been written. You're wrong, right? And I said, and really, if you believe that, stop being a dungeon master. Just go write your novel, right? And that is said a lot, like. And I really meant it. I'm like, you're not a dungeon master. You're a control freak, and you really should be just writing a novel. Okay. Then, it reminded me of my opinion on solo D&D solo. Running solo Dungeons and Dragons is just like you're finished. You're cooked, right? If you ever find yourself running solo Dungeons and Dragons, pack it up, you're finished. Like in that you no longer you're only finished from the perspective of you never have any chance of being cool again in your life. Like just buy your New Balance sneakers and get striped socks and pull up your shorts. You're finished, right? Like you have no chance of ever being cool again in your entire life. Like it is the most sad and pathetic thing you could ever do, right? And whenever I hear anybody talking about solo D&D, I'm like, just write a novel. Like, just go and do that. But then I was like, wait a second. I'm telling these people to go write a novel. But then I was like, wait a second. Who wants to write a novel? Right? Like, first of all, I have that is a rhetorical question. I've actually written 2 novels, right? 3,000 people come to my channel every day to hear what I have to say. I doubt 3,000 people have written the 2 novels. I doubt 3,000 people. Actually, my numbers are higher than that. I don't get nearly as much engagement on the 2 novels that I've written. By the way, if you want to see the 2 novels I've written, just hit my link tree below. You'll have access to my fantasy novel and to my science fiction novel, Amerindian 2192. All right. Okay. So, basically, we arrive at it. All right. So let's get all the way there. So I was thinking about this, and I was like, just go write a novel, right? But then I was thinking, wait a second. The novel is an antiquated art form. It's really not needed anymore. Gary Gygax brought forward this much more powerful way to build a story, right? The reason why novels suck is it's one person writing for a massive audience with no feedback, right? None, right? And that's not good. It's just a very bad, antiquated model, right? Whereas Gary Gygax is like, hey, get 5 people together, write a story, right? And then be ready to tear that story apart and to give up everything that needs to be given up as you be ready to give up everything that needs to be given up once you're rolling, right? Like, and basically you're going to present your story to the player characters, and they're going to change with an eyebrow raise. They're going to change the story, okay? And you're going to take those changes. And then both you, the dungeon master, and the dragon masters, the people playing the player characters, they're going to be interrupted by the dice, right? So that literally fate is organically inserted into the narrative. This is the most powerful form of narrative creation ever created by humans on the secular side, right? It far surpasses anything that can be accomplished with novel writing, right? But then I was like, wait a second, holy cows. What if Gary Gygax didn't just bring forward this powerful narrative structure that Dungeons and Dragons is? What if he actually changed the way novels should be written forever, prompting Scygaxians to Scygax? Okay, so what is a Scygaxian? A Scygaxian, they don't exist yet. I've just formed the concept, right? And I'm explaining it to you now. Would be a author who starts a novel, right, and builds player characters, okay, and then builds non-player characters, okay, and then begins the story, and the dungeon master would get input from other writers for the player characters, and would essentially, and that could be asynchronous, right? So they would not have to all sit at the table, and they would not have to do it sequentially, right? The author could just send the player characters to different writers and say, hey, this is the world. I'm not telling you the plot, I'm just telling you the world. Or even get their player characters from other writers, right? And then tell the story with the player characters they received, and then create their own non-player characters, which they would fully control, right? So it's important that the player characters in the story are not controlled by the Scygaxian, the core author, right? They would only control the non-player characters. Then they would get input, and it would be limited input, from the other writers for the player characters. And then as they go forward, at a frequency of 3 times per writing session, they would roll the dice to take the story in different directions. And so I think this would be better than writing a novel naturally, because the author would never know how it ends. And that's the great thing about Dungeons and Dragons. It has tactical infinity. No one at the table ever knows where the story is going. And that matches life. We never know where our story is going, right? And so that's why Scygaxing is better than traditional writing, right? And anyone who did this would be a Scygaxian, okay? That's my idea. I'm proposing it to, I think this is better than novel writing, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard in this video, every idea in this video is simply my humble opinion, right? What's important was when I get to hear your humble opinion on my humble opinion. Please consider like subscribing. And it's nothing more than my humble opinion, nothing less. Please consider like subscribing. Have a fetch millennium.